my first management level, I was a planning excellence manager. And had to do a survey of pain points. We had a lot of problems. We were not meeting any of our targets. Our CSI was awful. We were paying a lot of vendor non-conformance. So I'm in lubricants, which is a smaller version of oil and gas. But when you get $1 million in fines from Walmart, AutoZone, you've got to figure out what's wrong on top of the fact that you see what's here. So my supply planners were like, doesn't matter what I do, they're going to do what they want. We had a lot of problems with production planners. They actually said, hey, we're replanners. One of the biggest ones was my material planners couldn't even trust the system. We would hear customers set up correctly. I forecasted new business, but their demand is not met. It's not even there. We're not prepared. On top of that, we kept implementing new little spot technologies, right? So we had an inventory optimizer. We did some production and logistics optimization systems. None of them were working. We were spending millions and millions. And so that's where I first started seeing that as we would get down to the 5 whys, it was coming down to data was wrong, and spent a lot of time. Actually, the last 12 years, I've had a big hand in how we attack data in our system. So that's where my love of data and the data nerd came in. So Saha?
And my story is let's say my passion from a data standpoint is similar to some of the examples that Tammy said, and they were there when I was working in the oil and gas industry. But as once I moved into consulting, and we started working with a lot of different companies, the first thing always came in is, okay, hey, can you share what you already have? And as we started, we would always do a deep dive. You would find there was a lot of places where either the correct data was not being captured or the data was not being captured at all, and you were trying to set up some kind of a tool or some kind of a system to capture that data in a way so that you can do a deep dive into the root cause. And a lot of times it's let's say with certain clients, whenever we were there, is once we were able to get a handle on the data, actually the root cause started percolating to the top very quickly, because then it was much easier to communicate through multiple levels of the management, where everybody saw what was actually going on. So I'm probably an equal nerd like Tammy when it comes to looking at data and seeing what we can do to optimize it.
Thank you, Saha. And so we did want to clarify what master data management is. Again, I started in oil and gas in the literal oil and diesel and gas space, but then when I went into lubricants, which is an FMCG, right? So it looks like shampoo, but it's oil. All the different proliferations of sizes, and the data, gosh, it was just huge. But master data management is a comprehensive method of enabling the organization to link all the data to a common point. You have one source of data, and when it's done, it streamlines your data sharing, and hopefully we can give you some other benefits. Also, Saul and I sit through so many of these where they're like, oh, AI this and optimization that, but no one talks about how much money you're going to spend that will not work if you don't attack your data first. So I really wanted to get that point across, guys. Okay, so with that.
So as we go to the next one thing, we are going to be using automation, optimization, and AI. You'll see that kind of the 3 things that we talk about all throughout. Automation, it's just simply to define, is like any task completion without human intervention. Optimization is finding the best solution amongst different problems. And AI is mostly about looking at machine learning and seeing how it can basically mimic human intelligence. So this presentation is going as a story, right? So you already started seeing some text that is coming up. So it's once upon a time, we wanted to kind of say just is like automation, optimization, and AI were there. They want to take the organization to the next level to be in sync with Industry 4.0. And they had the challenges that they faced. And then they came to seeing that how can we do that in the ERP. So the main hero of the story, the ERP, is now trying to figure out what is the best way that these three systems, automation, optimization, and AI, can be integrated together, and how can we make it more dependable and reliable. So with the next slide, you'll see some conversations where the two of us will be playing some roles. So hopefully you find it very interesting.
Okay. So if you look, these are our three characters in addition to our hero. These are our stakeholders as well. So we've got automation. So automation has come to ERP, and it's all excited because we had all these feeds, right? We talked about this, and they're failing, and we can't even see the errors. They're losing revenue. Their costs are going up. Just like we said, expensive tech that is not delivering. And the schedulers are coming out, they're undeliverable. They're failing their industry regulations. So we talk about government and environmental regulations. They don't even have that. When the data is missing, the system is just calculating a zero. One of the key places this hurts is lead times. Lead times, if you do not have a lead time in the system, having a lead time of 0 is not going to make your customer happy. And then on the optimization, again, ERP, it's got to give. We're just making bad decisions faster. This is a direct quote that I heard before. We're having to delay the even good ones to check the accuracy. Customers and stakeholders don't trust us. Vendor shipments are not arriving when they should be. And we actually have a shipment blocked at the border. Another one, this is not a video game. We do not have infinite capacity. And we've got a lot of duplicates in our system.
And then when we get to AI, right, now we are trying to get to the next level where we're trying to see what can be done, because either there's too much data which is coming from the point of sale as things are being sold at the customer, and seeing how that information goes through the different nodes of the supply chain to the supplier, or looking at ways on how you can penetrate the market in different areas where currently there might be opportunities. So then the question becomes is, from an ERP standpoint, we're thinking, hey, why is this happening? Right? What do we need to do? We have some local optimization tools that we have done. We are looking at automation in terms of how the orders are coming in, how we are sharing information with the suppliers. If you have SAP, you might be using Ariba. You might be using Oracle for transportation management systems. And there's so much that is being invested in the different technologies, right? And so as a result, what you would expect over the years is that every year, what we are trying to do, the problems that we are facing should start reducing, right? So, and then still there's a gap. So the question becomes, okay, what am I missing? And how do I get the organization? So what support do I need from the organization to kind of meet their goals?
Okay. So now we've got our characters. We're going to introduce a new one. So MDM, maybe it's me, maybe it's your master data.
Oh boy, you are a monster.
But maybe I'm the monster you need. You can be so much more than just data if you join me. I can take you through this process.
Sure, but I don't have time for you and all your needs.
Let me join you. You can't ignore me and succeed. Yeah, don't fight it. In the words of Star Wars, I think it was Star Wars, resistance is futile.
I know we're all on mute, but guys, I'm like dying over here. This is great.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with our process. You want to ensure that each data record is unique and high quality, right? You want to reduce those errors in your reporting and your analysis. Do you need to rely on the data to drive your decisions?
Absolutely.
Okay, then we need to assess your data and your standards that we have in place. Let's conduct a thorough assessment of existing data. We'll define the clear data standards and guidelines. We'll establish naming conventions and formats for consistency. Make sure we do not have any duplicates.
Should we document the definitions, relationships, and rules?
Absolutely, yes. That is the real key to consistent, accurate, and efficient data quality.
I like this. This sounds great, but our teams have so much more to do, and they don't even know what data they control. And more on top of that, they do not even understand how they could do it.
So we can solve this. Let's implement a data governance framework. We'll establish clear ownership of those data elements. We'll provide user training on the data quality and entry procedures. And the key is that the training will be hands-on with the data owners cleaning their data as we go.
I like that. I think we should have this in writing and get a sign up from all our leaders.
Oh, exactly. If the leaders buy in, their teams will understand the importance. So you've established your policies and guidelines. What did you learn from the data training and cleaning?
We spent weeks cleaning the data, and we need to make sure that the data stays clean. The majority of the data errors that we found were typos, transposing numbers or typing a letter as a number. In some cases, we saw that there was no data available. It was just missing data.
Okay, so let's monitor and restrict those inputs. No more letter O for the 0. Let's make it so they can only put in a number. If the data element has only one value or is matched to another data element, let's automate it so no one has to intervene. When the data is entered into the contracts or customer system, let's feed the original data instead of recreating it in our ERP.
That's really good. We'll still have some manual inputs like lead times and cycle times.
Right. That is why we need regular monitoring and exception reporting. Let's see the errors as soon as they happen.
So we would assess the data that owned by the departments, clean it, establish a monitoring system, and a work here would be done.
Well, not exactly. So the data you identified in the first look is more reliable, but there's more data that interacts with your system that needs investigation. How will you capture these data elements and keep improving your data management?
Good thought. We automated our vendor info from a contract system, and the Incoterms were in the wrong host system. Can you believe that? We had a few other errors where the host was set up incorrectly. We can set up a data forum meeting at a monthly basis to get feedback for improvement. We can also add key data views to a monthly SNOP meeting.
So with this, at the end of our 4-step process, this is what effective MDM looks like. It's going to enable your technology. And this is to illustrate all the things it touches. It's not exhaustive, but you've got your CRM, your SRM, right? So we've got our suppliers, our suppliers, and it's going to enable your technology. And a couple of examples we had was actually the ESG example. So one of the ones I saw on the environmental side was in my business, we had being able to use circular additive parts, right? So our chemical division sells to an additive supplier who then makes additive for us, sends it back. So if we do that within environmental guidelines, right? So you've got your tracking and assigning of those credits. We've got to assign them through the system, get them back through the system. Can we make money and give the credits to some of our bigger customers? A lot of the large industries like mining, they need those credits. So able to do that, we've got to have the data right from like we said, from our supplier, we need to be able to see that flow through our system and getting it right.
And even another example could be is, let's say, in most of the organizations, there is some kind of business intelligence tool that is being used. And due to the importance of such a tool, it is pulling in data from a lot of different sources with master keys and identifiers. And if the data is not correct in any one system, then that percolates through all the way up to, let's say, the reports that people are seeing and using, and that can further drive to incorrect business decisions.
Absolutely. So your MDM can enable all of your systems all the way through from your customer to, from your vendor to customer. Okay, so now we've got our process, and now our ERP has MDM. He's much sleeker and cooler now.
Yeah, and then if you start looking at it, right? So one of the things from an MDM standpoint is it goes across a lot of different geographies, a lot of different business units, a lot of different customers, vendors, and quality systems. So the data is there. The data is going there in all of those areas. So as the master data management process gets established, as it starts becoming useful, all of these other functions now can see the information in a much more organized way, correct way, that will help them take the right decisions for their individual roles.
Right. So it's going to provide reliable data for our strategic and operational decisions. We saw collaboration in our departments because of the shared data. Once you can start seeing the benefits, right? More departments are going to come. So someone's going to come to you and say, hey, we have this data that's not right, but we know what it should be. And you can keep expanding that data view and the standards through there.
And there are other things
that regulations.
Right, and there are the others that you're seeing on the screen. So we're not covering each one of it, but at least it gives you some examples. And this list is not exhaustive, but at least it's in a way where you can start seeing how the impact of MDM on ERP is significant and the value it adds.
Right. And then with our automation, so now the biggest one for me that I saw was we have a warning when data's missing. So with the automation, you're not automating bad data. We've got warnings, right? Very quick warnings that something's not there. In our case, in my old company, we started with once a week and then it was twice a week. So it was only wrong for a couple of days.
Yeah, and let's say in some of the consulting work that I have done is you usually have clients, let's say that they're trying to do an SAP implementation, whether for production planning purposes or let's say from an invoicing standpoint, and any of the digital transformations that need to take place that the organization has in their pipeline, those become a lot easier from an automation standpoint, and having the right master data significantly reduces the amount of lead time it takes from when the project actually starts to when it is implemented and is useful for the organization.
Right. And you've got data governance and security compliance. Again, when you're importing and exporting, these are things that you really, really need to have, or when you're dealing with some of the governmental credits that you can have. So we'll look at optimization. I think we've talked about that a little bit. One of the biggest things we saw was the reduction in the number of changeovers while maintaining high OEE. Being a plant girl, that's super important, and we're still meeting customer demand.
And let's say from a transportation standpoint, which let's say being in every CPG industry, when you have a lot of products that are being shipped, it's critical that you find ways on which lanes should be used, or what load should be sent FTL versus LTL, how many warehouses should be there, where should they be located, And all of those things from an optimization standpoint become a lot easier with a robust MDM process in place.
Right. And when we implemented our transportation management system, zip codes, not having zip codes was huge. And actually, I believe you guys can double check me. I think it's about $4 million a year that it's costing our government when we don't put, just to think about how we see those feeds going and they get kicked out for no zip code. And it's about, I think it's about $4 million. Okay.
And then this is one right, Tammy, that you had mentioned earlier is there are zip codes that actually start with 0, and so making sure that you know that is important. Otherwise, those then become either typos or missing data, and now all of a sudden the optimization doesn't work.
Absolutely right, because if you think about as a number, we tend to concatenate at the end, right? We just think that's where it is. But if you do not have all 5 digits, that 0 has to be in the beginning. So it was one of the things that we did for ours, was that it had to have 5 complete digits. Okay, and so AI, one of the great things you can do once you've got all that information, especially your product information and your customer information delivery, you can actually engage with future vendors for competitive bids. I've actually seen this done where AI actually goes out and will do your RFIs for you, or RFQs. It will actually go out and do that, and it can do it while you're sleeping. It can use, maybe you have 3 people that you normally do, it can look at everyone. So, and because it's having this, it knows what the true requirements are for vendors, and you can actually get competitive bids that your team didn't even have to deal with till you got towards the end, saving you time and maybe money.
And a different example from a warehousing perspective is it's a client that I was working with, and they make let's say biscuits, and the biscuits they get manufactured in a bakery. From there, they'll go to a fulfillment center. From there to a distribution center, and then to a store. And all throughout is somebody the pallets are getting loaded onto a truck bed. They're getting unloaded. They're getting unwrapped. And there is potential for damage every time a product is touched. So let's say in most of the places, what you would have is somebody who is either loading or unloading is trying to capture the damage. What we saw was you could do is actually start using AI. We could train AI to identify the damage. And now you don't have people actually spending time capturing the data, but actually now looking at, hey, what can we do to solve these issues? Because capturing data is powerful, yes, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is affected by if those damages don't happen, or those damages, if they do happen, they get caught at the earliest point possible.
Absolutely. One of the things, again, coming from an FMCG company, the last note on here where you're looking at options, you can let AI look at options to reduce the number of formulations, to reduce SKU complexity. When you have all those chemicals, to be able to actually have your system do that without, a lot of people involved, that is a very manual process. So if you can train, get your AI to learn enough that it could do that, that would be fantastic. So that's kind of our stuff. This is the case study that we kind of threw together. When I think I told you guys 2013, I believe, started working on this. Our first attempt after all the conversations for hours, we had 27 planning data parameters. That's what we called them. And our first pull, we had, I want to say 22,000 errors just for 27 bits of data. Some of those were for items that we were taking off the market. It was huge. Now we're up to monitoring, last I looked, about 176 data elements. Again, we went from weekly, we started out, I was pulling some data out of SAP, popping it into Access. If anybody remembers Access, putting it there and then pulling it out. Now we've got, again, 176, 10% of them are automated. We don't even do them. A person does not clean them. They get cleaned themselves. And then we have hard parameters for all but about 10 of those 176. The others have soft parameters. But anyway, and I think I told you guys raw material planners before, they couldn't count on the system prompts. These people had great skills. I sat with them for a day in the life of at our Houston and our Pittsburgh plant. And they weren't just using spreadsheets, which all of us as leaders want to get them away from, right? We don't spend millions of dollars for Excel to be what you're still using, but they were using calendar reminders to remind them that, oh, the system's never right, but I probably have to order this every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks. So now a lot of our raw material orders can be automated. They go straight to the vendor with no human interaction. It's fantastic. And again, culture, team members were overwhelmed. Now it's part of rollouts. I think that was one that Saha, you talked about how that has become what happens. It's just part of the culture, even in your consulting teams.
Yes, yeah. From a culture standpoint, I think, Tammy, you're absolutely right. This becomes, let's say, it just flows to the organization because everybody understands what each person's role is and how what they are doing actually impacts the other departments. Because if you look at the supply chain, most of the time we are looking at losses that happen within each silo, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's purchasing or warehousing. But in fact, more than 60% of the losses happen between the silos. And those are between either due to communication gaps, that people don't know what their roles are, or a big factor of it is that the data is not flowing from one node of the department to the other node, and people are making their interpretations, their assumptions to kind of get to the next level. And with a good, robust MDM system, what happens is everybody understands it, and now you have a culture, and now the culture becomes a self-sustaining strategy for the rest of the organization, where everybody else benefits.
Yeah. And with bomb data was not part of those 27 parameters in the beginning. It was probably about the third phase that we found. We found ways to look at our bomb data was just, it was in really bad shape, out of date. We had a lot of old bomb data. Some were not complete. A very easy one is, does it equal 100%? If it doesn't, I mean, we literally had bombs that did not equal 100% of the, if we had 10,000 gallons, it just didn't add up. But capturing and monitoring, again, that helps your ESGs. So many things that come through, right? Vendors, if you're manufacturing something, that data gets fed back to the vendors. So now we actually have a system where, again, this is where I'd love AI to take its next, the next iteration for this, but we can actually look at the various bombs for optimization, because sometimes there are more than one. Then again, we went from no visibility to the data errors to, we actually talk about lead times, and there's only about 3 that are important enough that we've identified, but we actually talk about them in our step 3 leader level meetings where we see huge outliers. So for us, it's way better. So anything else?
I think that's good.
Okay. So the other tips and tricks, these are some fun things that we've seen. One is, I'll take the top 2. When you're trying to prioritize, what helped when I was working on it was, where are your KPIs falling, right? Because if you want to get that leader buy-in, you need to be able to tell them, again, if I do this, I think we're going to reduce vendor non-conformance, right? Which is also customer satisfaction. If you tell the plant, we're going to be able to give you a production schedule that you can adhere to. If you talk to exporting, we're going to make sure that when it gets to a South American country, it's not going to be held up at the border and seized, because we're going to have the right point of sale and information in there. And then again, I think training, it's overwhelming. include time to clean the data. The biggest thing I heard from other leaders when I started saying we needed to do this, and I designed our little week-long thing, was, I can't believe you want to train them again. We spent hours doing this when we first rolled out whatever. Come to find out, they spent 2 hours in a classroom and then thought that they would remember all this information when they went back to drama. Actually explaining what we needed to do. Our first one had about 12 hours of classroom training, and then about 2.5 days of just cleaning their data. We got that buy-in. And then on the last day, the Friday, we had a quick, hey, what did you learn? Can you share with your friends, and your coworkers? So that was those are key tips that I think.
And also, let's say, as we like some of the things that I've seen, let's say a lot of times where if a client is wanting to implement a system. So we had this beverage client who wanted to, let's say, implement SAP in planning. And all throughout, their thought process in their minds was that, hey, we have a process. All we need to make sure is SAP actually does what a process is. But what they didn't realize is, let's say, the SAP was forcing them to actually put in a lot of discipline. And that discipline could only happen if they had more robust check-ins or handshakes between the different functions, right? So let's say without that master data view, they were not able to see the value of what was needed. And when we started the project, it was, yeah, we're going to implement. But very soon, the project became less of an SAP implementation and more of a process alignment, and looking at, hey, what is the data that we need, and how should that data be structured in order so that we can make sure that we are able to produce and manufacture what our production schedule says, and we are able to have a much better OTIF. Similarly, let's say in some of the other cases is in carrying costs. That is usually something that is not hit. Let's say, yes, from a finance standpoint, you always see, hey, our inventory is too high. But in a lot of cases is when you deep dive, you try to find out, hey, maybe your min maxes are not set up correctly. Maybe you're not buying in the right quantities, or in a lot of other cases is, yes, you might have the system set up correctly, but the buyer does not know that there are price breaks for the different levels that need to kick in, and they are trusting the system the way it's supposed to work. And the system doesn't, because of a missing master data key, it does not know that it needs to pull in that information. So it doesn't do it. And then you find out at the maybe end of the quarter, or in worst case, at the end of the year, that you actually overpaid your vendor by a certain amount, which was an avoidable thing that you could have prevented if a good MDM system was in place.
Agree. And there are some great tools I hear out there. I started my journey, and I think Saw is the same. I know there are tools that can do this for you. We just started ours, in my case, with the old-fashioned, Excel, right? Just to try to figure out, one of these things is not like the other, Sesame Street. And then we did, I was pretty good at Access, so I figured out how to do that. We then went to Spotfire, and then we actually had a team member who said, Spotfire is horrible, it crashes all the time, and they wanted to learn BI. So while those tools are great, and if you want to spend the money, I definitely think you should, you can start any way that if you only have 5 bits of data, just start. Again, you saw we started with 27. And some of those were less important than others. But yeah, just getting started, you'll create a culture that kind of grows on itself. And then again, making it fun. The middle one there, the story behind that was we were implementing DDMRP, and I needed a hit team to look at some things that we had. And we kind of took volunteers, and what the people who tend to volunteer don't know how hard it is. I'm not going to lie. A lot of them were interns, and we told them they were going to have free reign and they could change other people's data, and they were like, ooh, like hackers. So I did not think of them. I stole that name. I was like, oh, that's right, we're MDM hackers. So just things to think about, how to make it fun, listen to the people. And again, we were kind of selective with our membership. The couple who were really excited, they kind of went out and said, okay, I'm going to get these people to help, and I'm going to get these people to help. So I think that's it. My biggest thing would be just start. Again, pick 5 bits of data. And I think that is all we have for you guys. So if you have any questions, we would love to entertain them.
And if you have any comments, we would love to hear them too.
Yes. Were you laughing so much that you didn't learn anything?
I thought it was very, very funny, very entertaining. And the voices and also the Star Wars references. I'm a total dork like that. But no, it kept me very much entertained, especially how like the little dude at the beginning like started looking better as it went along the story. So I thought you guys did an amazing job with that. No, you guys just did a great job. I'm trying to think of questions because I've done some stuff similar and I thought you presented it beautifully. So I'll keep thinking about it. Hopefully somebody else has some great questions to help prepare you for your presentation next week.
Did anybody, if you feel with the pace, was the pace okay? Was it legible enough? Do you felt we went too fast sometimes or too slow?
I think the pace was okay. I think and it's always the technical issues, right? In the beginning, I think threw both of y'all off just a teeny tiny bit, and I know you've been with me at my national conference. Like I had like a whole issue and it threw me off as well. So yeah, I would just say continue to pay attention to the pace that you have. You have great material. It's very, very legible. I don't think any of the slides were too crowded, which is fantastic. And it's always something that I kind of look for. So you kept it very, very engaging. I would say just like any other presentation, watch the ums. And I am like the #1 guilty ummer myself. See,
included.
But I think you guys are going to kill it next week. I am so excited to see you present this on an even broader scale. So, but I'll defer to everybody else in case anyone has any other feedback they want to share.
How many times, if any, do y'all have to push back the go live date just because of the culture that's hard to change?
True. No, I hear you. Yes. I will actually, they say pushing back might be a better option than I know when we did our TMS system, when we discussed the data, it was kind of like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I think, I'm not speaking poorly on anyone, but most vendors will tell you, oh, as long as your data is sort of right. I remember hearing that with a couple of hours. I wish that we had spent a little more time with some of the ones in the earlier actually pushing back, and it's why, again, why I said, ask what kind of data is going to be key. I think not pushing back is probably harder.
And Pete, I'll tell you, in my experience, everyone that I've been involved in has been pushed out because of data. And it was not necessarily because it was not identified. It was just the magnitude of what was needed to get it to the next level was overwhelming, and that's why it got pushed out.
Yeah, I was in one go live, and I think we pushed back maybe 2 months.
Yeah, you were at NOV, right? So we had, when we there was Glovia that was there, was being introduced. We were just doing a version update, and even the version update got pushed out by 6 weeks.
So for the BOM process, right? If I'm not mistaken, I heard that that now is automated to where orders are going out to the respective vendors without having to do a lot of Excel work. Is that correct?
Correct. Not all of them, obviously, but we've got quite a few that, so now vendor orders pop up in the system. They either overnight, because we have overnight feeds, a large percentage of them just go out to the vendor. Those are the ones that we can trust the data. We've got some more that we're working on that pop up, and if you do not export them, you actually have to go in and put a reason code. And one of the reasons is master data, and the rule is that doesn't happen again, right? So we have line of sight to that. If you've put that too much, it's one of the things we look at in our monthly SNOP, how many of those can be.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, for the ones that you are able to send out to vendors, right? Like, has there been any type of exception reporting or anything like that to where whoever's responsible for maintaining the data in the system can go back and check on anything like that? So that's, I don't know, I may have missed that part, but I just wanted to ask about it and see.
So in our case, for those that are automated, they still have to confirm in their system that they received it. And there is an exception that says you sent out 14 orders yesterday and you got 14 confirmations. And if you did not get a confirmation, you would know. So does that help?
Understood, yes.
Yeah, because we still, SAP is still our book of record. So we put it in one system, it automatically sends through SAP if they do not get a confirmation back. That was something that was added later. Again, you're not going to get it perfect the first time, but that was one of the things we wanted to know was, you know, because emails can go down, right? Feeds cannot work. How do you know?
You had mentioned data health quarterly at the SNOPs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something, a tool out there to grade what's healthy, or is that something built with the team in each company?
So again, there are some good systems. For us, it's more, sorry, my phone keeps going off. No, for us, data health is, I think we say 97% of critical. So we identified, now that we've been doing it for what, 12 years, 11 years, we actually have identified these are we sourcing for us, and lead times are the biggest. So we've got them, and we actually report, we do it monthly. So we look at them then on the critical ones.
Okay, I was just asking. I'm gonna probably reach out to someone in my supply chain and ask them if we do data health, and where are we on getting to that.
And it becomes something that you kind of negotiate, not gonna lie. In the very beginning, we said 99% health. Then we dropped it down to 97, because again, we started adding more data. We dropped it down to 97, and we said it could not be, once again, we did critical, there were 3 levels, I can't remember what they were. Critical was the most important, obviously. Critical data cannot sit there more than 7 days without being fixed, because data problems are going to happen. But that kind of became a 97 overall. Critical can't be more than 7 days. The least critical, which is withdrawn products, it can sit there for 30 days. But now we actually have majority of that being automated, so we don't even touch it.
But Pete, to your point, it actually could, let's say, if you're doing it, it almost becomes, is the data that has to be evaluated will keep on increasing, right? We're in a world where the amount of data on the fields that have to be looked at is not going to come down. So identifying which ones are the critical ones and making sure that those critical ones become manageable and can be managed, that becomes kind of the thing, is because that way you're focusing on some of the key ones. And as those key ones start getting into a cadence, then you can put on some kind of automation to kind of say that, hey, when was this last reviewed? How, and what are the tolerances and rules that find around it? And that way, because what you don't want is during the SNOP process, you get bogged down by, hey, this data is off. But more importantly, saying that, hey, how much of this information coming from step 1 to step 2 or step 2 to step 3 is actually correct.
And our dashboards now, so we started in North America because that was my role, but we actually report it globally for all the regions. So all the way up, they can look, not that they probably do, except for in our SNOP meetings. But lead times, if you think about it, that's no matter what, whether you use MRP or DDMRP, that's a big impact on your carrying costs and your CSI, right? So you want your customer service and you want to hit your OTIFs. Those are big ones. So that's one that gets reported, all the variants. I think we have a rule, if it's more than a 10% change, it's automatically highlighted in our SNOP.
The other thing I want to just mention before we forget is when you look at the deck, at the end, the 4-step process that we talked about, there are the ways. They don't have the characters like we had shown them earlier, but they do give you kind of a high-level overview on how you would go about each step and what you should be looking for.
Right. Yeah. If the characters were not fun, or they were too fun and you missed it, we wanted to actually show you what our 4-step process looks like.
Tammy, Sahab, so I really enjoyed the presentation. I really love your 3, like robots, the automation, the optimization, and the AI. I do love the most like the examples. So I think for next week, those are the ones that I will remember the most. And Tammy, how long did it take you and your team to implement the new process when you first started?
So it was about 6 weeks.
Nice. And then continuously monitoring
again,
afterwards.
So we started with those data, the data that we showed you, and about 6 weeks, I was doing it in Access and downloading SC16 tables, if anyone's familiar with SAP. So we were doing that and we were sending it out weekly. And with those 27, once we got that, it has evolved to where it is now. Does it still need work? In my opinion, absolutely. But yeah, it took us about 6 weeks and we went from 2,200 errors over that down to 200. And it stayed 200 until we brought in new errors. When you expect that, one of the things, we actually have a global data person now who took over all of that. And that person actually, we found a new rule, right? We found a new parameter, something that we need to monitor. She will run that report like on the down low for a couple of weeks and send it out to people so they know, hey, we just implemented looking at this procurement data, which is critical. And your region has, it's usually a couple hundred when we do it. It's gotten a lot better. We don't have those, 10,000 error new things, but yeah, you'll probably have a couple hundred. But I think that helps because that, she'll say, hey, it's going to go live, in 2 weeks. September 15th, this one goes live. So you can clean it ahead of time. But we get new errors all the time. Or new checks. I don't want to say new errors. I want to say new checks. Okay, guys. Do we have anything else? I'm gonna grab.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
letting us practice. And I think there was one more in here. You'll get, Johanna, you want to talk about this, the survey that will go out?
Yes, absolutely. No, thank you, Sahat. Thank you, Tammy. Very insightful presentation and PDM. So what I'll do, I will send this survey by tomorrow morning, and then please send us your your thoughts about the PDM, and then topics that you would like